illegal. You got to go back.
1 second.
No.
I didn't want to.
Yeah, you cannot take
more energy tonight. I like that.
This election is not just a choice between political parties. It is a generational choice about what kind of country we will be in the 21st century.
Donald Trump is an entertainer. I am a leader.
We need the strongest military on the face of the planet, and everyone has to know it.
For the 55-year-old construction worker out in that audience tonight who doesn't have a job, who can't fund his child's education, I got to tell you the truth. They could care less about your careers.
People are supporting me because I have a proven record of conservative leadership, where I cut taxes $19 billion over 8 years.
If I am elected president, I will rip to shreds this catastrophic Iranian nuclear deal.
I don't think that my strategy is going to change at all. It's going to be to tell the truth and to talk about my vision for America, which I think is something that a lot of people resonate with.
For us, that's what we need in Washington, someone to say it is put up or shut up time. We sent you there for a purpose. It's time to lead this country going forward.
The difference between me and the other candidates is that I'm going to do what I told you I would do.
And we're really killing it. We are killing it.
Welcome to this special edition of Hannity 2016 Horse Race. So who won the week? Now, it was a big week in presidential politics with candidates busy on the campaign trail, also squaring off in the second GOP debate. Here are some of the most talked about moments from Wednesday's second Republican showdown.
Mr. Trump said that he heard Mr. Bush very clearly, and what Mr. Bush said. I think women all over this country heard very clearly what Mr. Trump said.
President Obama is violating federal law by not handing over the side deals, and we ought to see the United States Congress stand up together and say, hand over this treaty and protect this country.
I hear your wife is a lovely woman.
She is.
I
She's
don't
fantastic.
know her, and this
she
is a total
absolutely the love of my life, and she's right here. And why don't you apologize for her?
No, I won't do that.
For the 55-year-old construction worker out in that audience tonight who doesn't have a job, who can't fund his child's education, I got to tell you the truth. They could care less about your careers. They care about theirs.
His visceral response to attack people on their appearance, short, tall, fat, ugly. My goodness, that happened in junior high.
I never attacked him on his look, and believe me, there's plenty of subject matter right there.
If I were sitting at home and watching this back and forth, I'd be inclined to turn it off. I mean, people at home want to know, across this country, they want to know what we're going to do to fix this place.
Here now with analysis of the GOP field, author of the #1 New York Times bestseller, 5 consecutive weeks, Plunder and Deceit, Big Government's Exploitation of Young People in the Future. I call him the Great One, Mark Levin. Thank me. How are you, sir?
I'm good, my brother. How are you?
All right. Like you, Mark, I am undecided. This WWE debate, you know, this one said this about you. This one said that about you. What do you say? Say it to them. Say it did not move the needle for me this week in terms of choosing an ultimate nominee that I think is best qualified. How about you?
No, I agree with you. These attempts to instigate the fights over the most moronic things. By the way, I would remind the viewers, early in our history, what they used to say about each other was unbelievable, that this candidate was an adulterer, this candidate had babies out of wedlock. This stuff about somebody's face, that's small potatoes. Now, that said, I don't like this media instigated, you said this, and what do you think about that? And he didn't like your face. Do you like your face? This is, for many of us, the country is at a precipice. We're looking into the abyss. There are major issues out there. This is not a format that really lends itself to a thoroughly serious discussion on the issues. And this is problematic, and this is something we need to think about as a Republican Party and as a people. I mean, Ted Cruz is given minimal amount of time because CNN is running a reality debate here, and they want as much food fight as possible. You've got 2 of the other contenders that take up a half hour. Scott Walker barely had any time. It's not a question of who I support or don't support. It doesn't matter, at least right now. And so I'm troubled by this. And so what I think we need to be able to do is, I want to hear 5 minutes from each candidate on Iran. I want to hear 5 minutes from each candidate on the border. I want to hear 5 minutes from each candidate on how to create jobs and create growth and economic opportunity in this country. There are many issues. They can be broken down very simply. But the reason the media don't want to do that, particularly networks like CNN, is it's not exciting. They want a pie fight. They want the Three Stooges. This is what they want. Some of the candidates are better at navigating through this. Some of the candidates are better at muscling through and getting their sound bites in. But I don't really think it helps the Republic very much.
Let me ask you, let's go through some of the individuals here. Obviously, Donald Trump got the majority of time. He's the front runner. He was attacked a lot. How do you feel he handled it?
Look, I mean, right from the get-go, Jake Tapper and CNN and a number of the candidates, they said in advance, they're going after Trump. He's the guy that's out front. So we had a scrum. I thought that was the worst 30 or 40 minutes of TV, of debate, of politics I'd ever heard or seen. I thought it was outrageous. But, you know, the Republicans have to show some restraint on that stage, too, but they didn't want to. So that troubled me a lot. I thought he muscled through it fine. I mean, when you're getting hit with machine gun bullets, at some point, you know, you may say something that's a little odd or not. But I thought he muscled through better than most candidates would.
Yeah. Ben Carson, when you look at these polls, they're fascinating to me. You got two outsiders that are leading in the polls. You know, Ben Carson, my take is he's a great guy. He has a compelling story. He's a thoughtful guy. But a debate format is not his format. And I feel that it's never going to be helpful to him. Your thoughts?
I agree with you. I mean, there is a middle between relatively passive or soft-spokenness and loud provocation. But again, it's the format that troubles me, because Abraham Lincoln had a very high, squeaky voice. Others had other problems throughout American history. And I just don't think, and I'm not saying it's Ben Carson, even though I'm a big fan of his, I just don't think we should be making judgments based on such superficial things. He's an intelligent man. He's a solid conservative man. He's a man of faith, and he should be taken very seriously.
What do you think? A lot of, obviously, if you read the pundits, I do think Carly had a good night. I thought she stood out in a lot of ways. I didn't quite take it the same way that some people talked about it. I'm interested to see if it translates into poll numbers. Marco Rubio gave, I thought, one of the best answers about a gangster by the name of Vladimir Putin, who's trying to co-opt and fill the vacuum of America being off the international stage and co-opt Syria and Egypt and Saudi Arabia and others. I thought that was a solid answer.
Well, there were a lot of solid answers. You know, they're all running as Barry Goldwater and Milton Friedman and George S. Patton right now, if you'll notice. A lot of them have records that are much more moderate or even liberal. Some of them have massively expanded Medicaid. Some of them used to be for amnesty. Some of them used to be against limiting the debt ceiling and so forth. And you asked me about Carly Fiorina. You know, today the establishment likes Carly Fiorina. Last week it was Kasich. The week before that it was Jeb Bush. These people have records, too. And in all the discussion I've heard about Carly Fiorina so far, I've heard nothing about what she said when she ran in the Republican primary in the Senate in 2009 and 2010, where she was the moderate running against the conservative Chuck DeVore, and her positions were quite different. So we have a lot of flip-floppers. I'm not saying they shouldn't evolve into being more and more conservative. I also think it's very interesting, Sean, that these candidates are moving to the right as they run, some of them who are not so conservative. And this is an important message for Mitch McConnell and John Boehner, a message that I don't think they're really paying much attention to.
Yeah, well, that's the bigger problem, and that is that the Republicans, they didn't use the power of the purse on Obamacare. They funded illegal, unconstitutional immigration. I bet when all's said and done, Mark, when this 2-week period, when they debate the CR, they'll end up funding Planned Parenthood because, quote, they don't want to get blamed for a shutdown. Isn't this causing or creating the rise of the insurgent candidates? And where does Ted Cruz fit in all of this? I thought he had a good night. I would have liked to have heard more from him and more from Walker and more from Rubio and some others. Where does he fit in this?
Well, you weren't going to hear more from them because the moderators wouldn't let them. When you heard the discussion about this so-called global warming, I actually heard Marco Rubio and Chris Christie and who else? And Walker basically say, yeah, it exists, but the question is, what do we do about it? And we don't want to destroy jobs. And Tapper was there saying, well, you know, you're skeptics. No, we're not. And then at the end, Cruz says, well, I'm a skeptic. Let me comment. And he says, no, you'll have your turn later, and dismissed him and moved on. You know why? Because the food wasn't flying. That's why. The shoes weren't flying. And he could see this might be boring. So Again, the media is problematic here. They're pushing for ratings, so they're driving up their commercial rates and so forth and so on. But We've got 7 more debates, and let me predict to you right now, Sean, in debate number 6, nobody will remember what happened in debate number 2.
Well said. All right, the great one. Mark, by the way, congratulations. 5 consecutive weeks #1 on the New York Times list. Congrats.